Alright, this is another version or another edition of Dwight's movie reviews. I'm going to be reviewing a movie that was made in the 70s. I forget exactly when, but I know it was in the 70s. It was made from a book written by Ken Kesey. It's called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It has Jack Nicholson in it, and it's just is a fantastic movie. Now, I guess I first read this in high school. I was always in honors English or AP English. They called it both things. But in 12th grade English, when I was a senior, which was in about 2008, so I'm talking a long, long time ago, almost about 9 years ago now. I read this book because this was a point in the class when we had a choice among a certain selection of books. She gave us a certain list of books that we could choose to read from and do a book report on, and I chose that one. I didn't know anything about it at the time, but I read it and I just loved the book. I loved it, and since then, when I was in college, I did watch the movie, and now. Quite a while ago, I did buy the movie on Amazon Instant Video, and I just find it to be a fantastic movie. And I did also recently buy the book just this last Christmas, so that I can reread it again and talk about it in its book form. So I do want to review the movie as it is, and thus not discussing as much detail as I will after after I have reread the book. So basically, what you have is you have the setting of a mental hospital or a mental institution, and you kind of have it's not a horribly disturbed ward. It's not, but it's people who do have some mental issues. You have basically half of them are people who have lost some of their marbles, and but they still talk and they still interact with each other and they still play games together and they gamble. And the other half are basically, they have a different word for them, but they're basically people that are kind of catatonic and are sort of they're mentally catatonic. And basically you have this guy named Randall McMurphy, who was first arrested for statutory rape, and he was put on this work farm for it. And I don't know; they don't tell a whole lot about how he got there, but about how he got to the mental hospital. But he got there; he landed himself there because he must have led somebody to think that during one of his psychiatric evaluations that he had some level of insanity to him. And personally, I don't think that he has any insanity. And now McMurphy is played by Jack Nicholson, and that person, Jack Nicholson, is just a fantastic actor. One of my favorites ever. He was in, of course, The Shining, and a lot of other great movies between even now and the 70s. So you have basically you have Nurse Ratched, who a lot of them hate. They come to hate, and pretty much what happens is you have a daily group therapy where Nurse Ratched goes and talks to each person, tries to work out some problems that they're having with the rest of the group, and that's kind of what happens on a daily basis. And the way I want to explain it is that McMurphy causes a large uproar, more than there ever apparently has there really been. Nurse Ratched kind of has these patients who typically obey her, and he kind of flips the script a little bit on her, including, I say, choking her at the very end of the movie. But I don't want to give away too many spoilers or big details. I would highly recommend reading the book first. I mean, that's just. I mean, in most cases, when a book is made into a movie, the movie doesn't compare at all. But in this case, both are very comparable, and they both are just fantastic. However, I'd still say the book wins in this case. So, what first kind of happens is McMurphy wants to watch the World Series in baseball, and he tries to get a vote. First, he loses, and he does eventually win, even though she doesn't let him watch it because she says, "Well, we have strict rules for this and stuff." So he kind of causes this big uproar, wherein people do start to not just do whatever she says. They start to kind of have their own wills. And you do learn that most of them are voluntary. They're not committed. Most of them are voluntary. And he doesn't understand this. Well, McMurphy is committed. And so this kind of escalates to a point, and I don't want to explain everything, but there is a scene where Cheswick, who is one of the patients, he, basically they gamble in the tug room and they lose their money. They lose money and they lose their cigarettes. So she starts to ration cigarettes. Cheswick gets really mad, starts standing up and yelling at her, and everybody. This kind of just big thing happens, and there's also Chief. Chief is this big Native American fellow who leads everyone to believe that he is deaf and dumb. Can't speak, can't hear. And he's not, though. And he does eventually talk to Mac Murphy. But he does eventually talk to Mac because he does find a good friend in Mac. And I just think it's really is kind of sad what happens in the end. I don't want to give that away. But Mac does a lot of things which does kind of get him into trouble, including they were going to go on a bus somewhere, I'm not sure where, but then he jacks the bus and takes them to a lake, and he jacks a boat and takes them all fishing. He does he kind of just defies Nurse Ratched on a daily basis, and she's trying to just get back her control, even though he's just kind of taking it from her and sort of just messing everything up. And they do. And during the scene where Cheswick is yelling for his cigarettes, and Mac is just telling, "Hey, Cheswick, sit down." And he has just learned at that point that his jail time that he was serving doesn't transfer to his time in the mental facility, and the people at the mental facility can keep him as long as they damn well please. So he was just basically fucking with Nurse Ratched for no purpose. So you have this big uproar, and the mental institution guards, they kind of try to get Mac under control, and they try to get Cheswick under control, and Chief comes to Mac's aid, basically. And that gets Cheswick, Mac, and the Chief to get shock treatment, thankfully, which is no longer in practice. Which is an interesting thing to see. Now, I don't want to go into any more detail, but I guess I will say that Mac does plan an escape. He, the night guard, Mr. Turkle, who is Scatman Crothers, and he's also the guy who plays the cook on The Shining. Pretty cool. He gets Mr. Turkle. He bribes him to let these girls in with all this booze, and he basically creates this huge party. And I don't want to go into anything further because this does lead to something very huge. I highly recommend watching this movie. Now, about my 3 criteria, which I do for every single movie: plot, acting, the visual, and any theme or philosophy. I wouldn't say that there's a overriding theme or philosophy. I would say theme. I don't want to use the word theme, because there's a theme in every movie, but philosophy or point here. But for plot, this is something that has never been done before, except in the book that it was the book was made into a movie. So the only other place that this has really been done is in the book that it was made from. This is a totally original thing, very cool, and it does kind of make sense, because before Matt got there, they were just people who were just in this hospital. They have a lot of issues, and he kind of taught them that they need to live their lives and enjoy themselves. He says that Billy, who's one of the younger people who has a stutter, he finds out that Billy is voluntary. He's like, you should be out there, having sex and drinking and all this stuff, and not being here. So he kind of does teach them that there's life to be lived out there, instead of in this hospital having their lives run by this bitchy nurse. So he does make a huge effect on the chief, makes a huge effect on Billy, and I won't really explain how in those 2 ways, because they're kind of spoilers. But this plot is a 10 out of 10. Obviously, this is a gold listed movie. I have this in my Amazon videos that I have. I have a ton of them which I bought because I watched them a lot. I watched them a lot in a period of a year. The plot is 10 out of 10 because it's just fantastic. It just is groundbreaking, fantastic movie. It makes you feel for each and one of the characters. So, acting, obviously, you have Jack Nicholson here, one of the best actors of all time. You have Danny DeVito in his younger years, and the acting is great and everything seems authentic. I mean, it's fantastic acting. The acting is definitely a 10 out of 10. What you see a little bit of gore. You see a little bit of you see the downtroddenness of these patients. You see basically what a mental hospital back in those days would have been like. You see the true nature of it, and it's really kind of, so the visual of what you see is definitely also a 10 out of 10. You see real things happening. You see the real feeling of the place. So this is a gold listed item for me, a gold listed movie. And I have my gold list in these reviews are just movies that I find to be 10 out of 10 gold listed, because they are just beyond fantastic, and I will watch them until I die. This is one of them. So if you haven't read the book, read the book, and I'm gonna be rereading that soon so that I can do a video on it. Watch the movie too, and it's just a fantastic movie. So let me know what you think about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the book or the movie, and thank you.